Sharks have haunted human imagination for centuries, ghosts of the deep, driven by instinct and honed by evolution. They strike without warning, often invisible until the last fatal second. Every coast and reef holds tales of sudden violence and primal fear. From a peaceful dive to a blood-soaked frenzy in seconds, these predators transform calm into chaos with a single movement. Across 6 stories, the ocean's vast kingdom reveals no second chances, only the raw, unrelenting power of nature's most efficient killers. The pristine waters along the Mozambique coast have long been regarded as one of the Indian Ocean's hidden gems. Located in the Inhambane province, this coastal stretch attracts wealthy adventurers seeking untouched marine experiences far from the crowded dive spots of the Caribbean or Mediterranean. The area's history as a trading post had given way to modern ecotourism, though the remote location meant rescue services remained limited. Local fishermen had reported increased shark activity in recent months, attributing it to seasonal migrations and an abundance of reef fish drawn to the area's protected coral systems. Larisa Korolenko had built her fortune in Ukraine's burgeoning tech sector, developing software solutions for Eastern European markets. At 34, she possessed both the wealth and adventurous spirit that led her to commission custom diving equipment from a German manufacturer specializing in high-end underwater gear. Her birthday celebration in 2015 was planned as an intimate affair aboard the luxury yacht Meridian's Dream, accompanied only by her dive instructor and a small crew. The vessel had anchored approximately 3 nautical miles from shore, positioning itself above a reef system known locally for its biodiversity. The custom dive suit that Larisa wore represented the pinnacle of underwater technology. Manufactured by a boutique German company, the suit incorporated reflective thermal panels designed to regulate body temperature in varying water conditions. Embedded biometric sensors monitored vital signs and transmitted data to surface equipment, while the suit's unique fabric blend promised enhanced mobility and protection. The metallic threading woven throughout the material created an almost iridescent appearance underwater, intended to blend with the natural play of light filtering through the ocean depths. Her dive partner, a seasoned instructor named Marcus Hoffman, had expressed mild reservations about the suit's reflective properties. He mentioned that certain marine predators might be attracted to unusual visual stimuli, though he acknowledged that no documented incidents had occurred with similar equipment. The morning dive had been planned to explore a reef wall that dropped approximately 60 meters into deeper waters, an area known for its population of large pelagic species. The descent began routinely at approximately 10:30 in the morning. Larisa demonstrated excellent buoyancy control as she followed Marcus toward the reef wall, her movements graceful despite the suit's bulk. The water visibility exceeded 25 meters, revealing the vibrant ecosystem that made this location so prized among serious divers. Schools of yellowfin tuna moved in coordinated formations while reef sharks patrolled the deeper waters beyond the coral formations. Marcus later reported that the attack occurred without warning at a depth of approximately 40 meters. The great white shark, estimated at nearly 5 meters in length, approached from the murky waters beyond the reef wall. Its initial strike came from below, a behavior consistent with the species' typical hunting pattern. The shark's massive jaws clamped around Larisa's torso with crushing force, the impact so violent that Marcus felt the pressure wave through the water. The suit's advanced materials provided no protection against the shark's bite force, which marine biologists estimate can exceed 2 tons per square inch. The reflective panels that had cost thousands to develop were shredded instantly, while the biometric sensors transmitted a brief burst of alarming data before the system failed. Marcus watched in horror as the shark's powerful tail drove both predator and victim deeper into the water column. His training dictated that he maintain visual contact while signaling the surface support team, but the shark's erratic movements made this impossible. The great white appeared to be testing its grip, shaking Larisa violently before adjusting its hold. Marcus later described the scene as surreal, noting how the suit's torn reflective elements created an almost strobe-like effect as they caught fragments of sunlight filtering down from above. The surface crew responded within minutes of receiving Marcus's emergency signal. The yacht's captain, experienced in coordinating diving operations, initiated search protocols while radio contact was established with Mozambican Coast Guard authorities. However, the remote location meant that professional rescue resources were hours away, leaving the yacht crew to conduct their own recovery efforts. Marcus remained underwater for nearly 20 minutes, following standard search patterns while monitoring his air supply carefully. He discovered sections of the destroyed suit floating at various depths, along with pieces of the sophisticated equipment that had been integrated into its design. The biometric monitoring device continued to transmit intermittent signals for several minutes after the attack, though the data it provided painted a grim picture of the victim's condition. Recovery efforts continued throughout the day, with local fishing boats joining the search operation. Larissa's body was never found, though additional fragments of her equipment were located scattered across a wide area of the seafloor. The pattern of debris suggested that the shark had carried its victim significant distances from the initial attack site. The incident prompted discussions within the diving community about the potential risks associated with highly reflective underwater equipment. Marine biologists noted that great white sharks are known to investigate unusual visual stimuli, particularly objects that might resemble their natural prey. The tragedy served as a stark reminder that even the most advanced technology cannot eliminate the inherent risks of entering the ocean's apex predator's domain. Larissa's family established a memorial fund supporting marine conservation efforts in Mozambique, though they declined to pursue legal action against the equipment manufacturer. The incident remains one of the few documented cases involving designer diving equipment and shark attacks, highlighting the unpredictable nature of human-wildlife encounters in marine environments. The waters surrounding a small island off Western Australia have served as a naval testing ground since the 1940s. Located 18 kilometers from the mainland port city of Fremantle, this limestone island possessed unique acoustic properties that made it ideal for sonar calibration exercises. The surrounding Indian Ocean waters, reaching depths of over 200 meters within a few kilometers of shore, provided an environment similar to operational theaters, where naval vessels would deploy their sophisticated detection equipment. Local marine life had adapted to decades of intermittent sonar testing, though researchers noted that the area's great white shark population seemed particularly responsive to underwater vibrations. In 2018, the United States Navy vessel Steadfast arrived for joint exercises with Australian naval forces. The mission involved calibrating next-generation sonar arrays designed for submarine detection, a work that required precise underwater positioning of sensitive equipment. Chief Petty Officer Dana Holloway had volunteered for the technical diving assignments, her 12 years of naval service having prepared her for complex underwater operations in challenging conditions. The diving team had been briefed on local marine hazards, though great white sharks were considered a minimal risk given the controlled nature of their operations. The morning of the incident began with routine equipment checks aboard the research vessel Meridian Explorer. Dana and her dive partner, Petty Officer Second Class Rodriguez, prepared their mixed gas rebreathers for an 80-foot descent to position acoustic sensors along the seafloor. The water temperature registered 18 degrees Celsius, requiring thick neoprene suits and extended decompression schedules. Weather conditions were optimal, with minimal surface chop and underwater visibility exceeding 15 meters. Dana's military diving experience included operations in the Persian Gulf and Mediterranean Sea, but the Australian waters presented unique challenges. The rocky limestone formations created complex underwater topography, while strong currents required careful navigation to maintain position over the sensor deployment sites. Her equipment loadout included a primary and backup oxygen supply, underwater cutting tools, and communication gear linking her to the surface support team. The sonar calibration process required divers to activate acoustic beacons at predetermined intervals while surface technicians recorded signal strength and clarity. Dana had successfully positioned 3 sensors when the testing protocol called for a high-intensity pulse designed to simulate emergency detection scenarios. The powerful sonar burst, transmitted at frequencies known to travel efficiently through ocean water, created vibrations that marine biologists later theorized may have attracted the attention of a great white shark patrolling the deeper waters beyond the test site. Rodriguez later reported that the shark appeared suddenly from the murky water below their position. The great white, estimated at approximately 4 meters in length, demonstrated the species' characteristic approach pattern of rising from deeper water toward targets silhouetted against the brighter surface. Its initial strike targeted Dana's primary oxygen tank, the aluminum cylinder presenting a metallic profile that may have resembled prey fish to the shark's sensory system. The impact knocked Dana off balance, her regulator torn from her mouth as the shark's jaws crushed the oxygen tank's upper valve assembly. The force of the bite punctured the high-pressure cylinder, creating a violent release of gas that further startled both the shark and the diver. Dana's training took over as she reached for her backup regulator while simultaneously attempting to assess the damage to her primary life support system. The shark's behavior suggested confusion rather than predatory intent. Marine biologists studying the incident noted that the attack pattern differed significantly from typical feeding behavior, lacking the repeated strikes and thrashing movements associated with predation. Instead, the great white appeared to investigate the unusual metal object before determining it was not suitable prey. Rodriguez responded according to their emergency protocols, deploying a high-intensity strobe light designed to disorient marine predators while approaching to assist his dive partner. His underwater knife, intended primarily for cutting through fishing nets or rope, proved effective when thrust toward the shark's snout area. The combination of bright flashing lights and physical contact caused the great white to release its grip on the damaged equipment and retreat into the deeper waters. Dana's ascent became a race against time as her remaining air supply had been compromised by the damaged tank connections. Rodriguez maintained close contact while monitoring her vital signs through their integrated communication system. The surface support team prepared emergency medical equipment as the divers completed their decompression stops, though Dana's condition remained stable throughout the controlled ascent. Upon reaching the surface, medical evaluation revealed that Dana had suffered a collapsed lung from the pressure changes during the attack, along with severe bruising across her back and shoulders where the damaged equipment had impacted her body. The torn backplate of her diving harness showed clear tooth marks, providing forensic evidence of the great white's bite force and jaw structure. The incident prompted a comprehensive review of naval diving protocols in waters known to harbor large sharks. Sonar testing procedures were modified to include marine life monitoring, while diving teams received additional training on shark encounter protocols. Dana's recovery required 3 weeks of medical leave, during which time she worked with naval psychologists to process the traumatic encounter. Her return to active diving duty demonstrated remarkable resilience, though she reported heightened awareness of marine life during subsequent operations. The Navy commended both divers for their professional response under extreme circumstances, noting that their adherence to training protocols had prevented a potentially fatal outcome. The damaged oxygen tank was retained for analysis, its bite marks providing researchers with valuable data about great white shark jaw mechanics and bite pressure. Dana's survival became a case study in military diving safety, illustrating how proper training and equipment redundancy could overcome even the most unexpected underwater encounters. The incident reinforced the unpredictable nature of marine environments, where advanced military technology intersects with ancient predators operating according to instincts developed over millions of years of evolution. The river system in Australia's Northern Territory had been shaped by centuries of seasonal flooding, creating a complex network of waterways that connected the interior wetlands to the Timor Sea. Located approximately 60 kilometers east of Darwin, this river system served as a critical habitat for numerous species, adapted to the dramatic seasonal changes between wet and dry periods. The area's Aboriginal communities had long understood the river's dual nature, respecting both its life-giving properties and its capacity for sudden violence during the monsoon season. European settlement in the 1800s had brought cattle stations and small fishing communities, though the remote location meant that modern emergency services remained hours away from many riverside settlements. In 2019, Cyclone Marcus had produced unprecedented rainfall across the top end, swelling rivers beyond their normal boundaries and pushing marine species far inland from their typical coastal habitats. The flooding had been particularly severe along the river, where traditional fishing grounds had been transformed into turbulent channels carrying debris and displaced wildlife. Local indigenous elders had warned that unusual conditions might bring unexpected dangers, though their concerns were often dismissed by newer residents unfamiliar with the river's history. Jara Marlowe had operated his fishing enterprise along the river for nearly 15 years, building a modest living by supplying fresh barramundi to Darwin's restaurant trade. At 43, he possessed the weathered appearance of someone who had spent decades working under the harsh Northern Territory sun. His knowledge of the river's seasonal patterns had been gained through experience, rather than formal education, though his instincts for reading water conditions had proven remarkably accurate over the years. His daughter accompanied him on many fishing expeditions, learning the skills that had sustained their family for generations. The morning of the attack began with routine checks of the fish traps that Jara had positioned along the river's edge. These traditional-style enclosures, constructed from wire mesh and timber frames, were designed to capture fish during their feeding movements while allowing smaller species to escape. The recent flooding had displaced many of his traps, requiring careful repositioning to ensure they remained effective while complying with local fishing regulations. Water levels remained elevated from the recent cyclone, with murky brown currents carrying sediment and organic matter from the flooded interior regions. Visibility beneath the surface was virtually zero, creating conditions that made it impossible to observe underwater hazards or wildlife movement. The usual clear demarcation between saltwater and freshwater had been eliminated by the massive freshwater influx, allowing marine species to venture much further upstream than normal circumstances would permit. Jara had waited approximately 30 meters from shore to adjust a trap that had been twisted by the current when the bull shark struck without warning. The species possessed a unique physiological adaptation, allowing it to survive in both saltwater and freshwater environments. The flooding had created ideal conditions for these sharks to move upstream in search of prey, following the scent trails of distressed fish and other marine life displaced by the cyclone. The initial bite targeted Jara's lower leg just below the knee, the shark's powerful jaws clamping down with crushing force that immediately severed muscle tissue and fractured bone. Bull sharks are known for their aggressive nature and reluctance to release prey once they have committed to an attack, characteristics that made Jara's situation particularly desperate. The muddy water concealed the extent of his injuries, while making it impossible for him to see his attacker or anticipate its next movement. His daughter, who had been collecting baitfish near the riverbank, witnessed her father's sudden distress as he began thrashing in the water approximately 50 meters away. His calls for help echoed across the water, though the remote location meant that immediate assistance was unlikely. The bull shark maintained its grip while attempting to drag Jara into deeper water, a behavior consistent with the species' hunting strategy of drowning terrestrial prey that ventures too close to the water's edge. Several local fishermen who had been working downstream heard Jara's distress calls and responded immediately, though reaching his position required navigating the swollen river's dangerous currents. The rescue effort was complicated by the need to approach carefully without provoking the shark into a more violent attack, while simultaneously dealing with the possibility that other bull sharks might be present in the area. The men used long wooden poles to strike at the water around Jara, while creating as much noise and disturbance as possible, tactics that eventually convinced the bull shark to release its grip and retreat into the deeper channel. Jara was pulled to safety with severe lacerations and puncture wounds that required immediate medical attention, though the remote location meant that proper surgical facilities were hours away by road. Emergency medical services transported Jara to a medical facility, where surgeons worked to repair the extensive tissue damage and address potential infection from bacteria present in the river water. His recovery required multiple operations and months of rehabilitation, during which time he was forced to abandon his fishing activities and find alternative sources of income. The attack highlighted the unexpected consequences of extreme weather events on wildlife behavior and human safety. Marine biologists noted that cyclone-driven flooding had created unprecedented conditions that allowed bull sharks to penetrate far upstream from their normal coastal habitats. Local authorities issued warnings about increased shark activity in freshwater areas, though many residents remained skeptical about the presence of marine predators in traditionally safe inland waters. Jara's experience became a cautionary tale within the fishing community, illustrating how climate-related events could rapidly alter familiar environments and introduce new hazards. His survival was attributed to the quick response of fellow fishermen and his own determination to fight back against the attack, though the physical and psychological scars remained permanent reminders of the encounter. The incident contributed to ongoing research into bull shark behavior and habitat utilization, providing valuable data about how these adaptable predators respond to environmental changes. Jara eventually returned to limited fishing activities, though he never again ventured into the water without multiple safety measures and constant vigilance for signs of marine predators in what had once been considered safe freshwater territory. A small fishing town on South Africa's southern coast gained international recognition as a premier destination for great white shark viewing. Nearby islands create a narrow channel where dense populations of seals attract large numbers of great white sharks year-round. The area's unique geography, with its shallow kelp forests and deep offshore waters, created ideal hunting conditions for these apex predators. Local communities had developed a complex relationship with the sharks, simultaneously fearing and depending upon them for the tourism revenue that sustained many families. In 2017, the waters off the coast had experienced unusual shark activity patterns, with marine biologists reporting increased aggression and territorial behavior among the great white population. Some researchers attributed this to changing water temperatures and shifting prey distributions, while local fishermen noted that traditional fishing grounds had become increasingly dangerous for small boat operations. The town's economy depended heavily on shark cage diving operations, though these commercial activities had created ongoing debates about the ethics of deliberately attracting predators to areas frequented by local residents. Thabo Mbeki had spent his entire 48 years working the waters along the coast, initially as a crew member on fishing vessels before establishing his own small boat operation focused on traditional line fishing methods. His knowledge of local currents, weather patterns, and marine life had been passed down through generations of fishermen, though he recognized that changing ocean conditions required constant adaptation of traditional techniques. His 16-year-old daughter, Naledi, had shown exceptional aptitude for free diving, demonstrating the natural breath-holding abilities and underwater confidence that marked the best traditional divers. The father-daughter diving expedition had been planned as an advanced training session intended to develop Naledi's skills in deeper water while maintaining the safety protocols that Thabo had learned during decades of fishing in shark-populated waters. Their target area was a rocky reef approximately 2 kilometers from shore, where abalone and other shellfish could be harvested legally with proper permits and techniques. The location had been chosen specifically for its relatively protected position and historically low shark activity during daylight hours. Weather conditions on the morning of the dive were optimal, with minimal wind and exceptional underwater visibility that allowed clear observation of the seafloor at depths exceeding 20 meters. Thabo had thoroughly briefed his daughter on safety procedures, emphasizing the importance of maintaining visual contact with the surface and recognizing signs of marine predators. Their small boat was equipped with basic safety equipment, though the remote location meant that emergency assistance would require considerable time to arrive. Naledi's preparation for the dive included breathing exercises designed to extend her underwater endurance and mental conditioning techniques that would help her remain calm in potentially stressful situations. Her natural abilities had impressed experienced divers, though Thabo remained cautious about exposing her to the inherent risks of deep water free diving in an area known for its shark population. The training session was intended to build her confidence gradually, while ensuring that safety remained the primary consideration. The great white shark that attacked Naledi appeared to have been attracted by the unusual activity patterns created by their diving operations. Marine biologists later speculated that the shark may have been investigating the boat's anchor chain or responding to vibrations created by their entry into the water. The attack occurred during Naledi's descent toward the 15-meter mark, when she was most vulnerable due to her focus on equalizing pressure and navigating toward the reef structure. The shark's initial strike targeted her lower leg, its massive jaws clamping down with sufficient force to penetrate her wetsuit and inflict deep puncture wounds. Naledi's training took over as she fought against panic while attempting to push the shark away using techniques that Thabo had taught her for dealing with marine predators. Her movements were hampered by the need to conserve oxygen, while simultaneously defending herself against an attacker that outweighed her by several hundred kilograms. Thabo, who had been monitoring his daughter's dive from the surface, immediately recognized the signs of distress when she failed to resurface at the expected time. His decision to enter the water despite the obvious danger demonstrated the instinctive response of a parent protecting his child, though his actions also reflected the practical knowledge gained through years of working in shark-inhabited waters. His approach involved creating maximum disturbance, while maintaining enough distance to avoid becoming a secondary target. The shark's behavior during the attack suggested investigative, rather than predatory intent, with the relatively brief contact time indicating that Naledi did not fit the profile of the great white's preferred prey species. Her vigorous defensive movements and the arrival of her father likely convinced the shark that she represented more effort than reward, leading to its decision to abandon the attack and retreat to deeper water. Naledi's ascent to the surface required considerable effort due to her injuries and the shock of the encounter, though her free diving training proved invaluable in maintaining controlled breathing and avoiding panic-induced mistakes that could have worsened her situation. Thabo's assistance during the final stages of her ascent ensured that she reached the boat safely, where immediate first aid could be administered while they returned to shore for proper medical treatment. The wounds inflicted by the shark required extensive surgical repair, though Naledi's youth and overall fitness contributed to a remarkably successful recovery process. Her experience became a source of inspiration within the local diving community, demonstrating how proper training and mental preparation could enable survival even during the most challenging encounters with marine predators. The incident strengthened the bond between father and daughter, while providing valuable insights into great white shark behavior and human-shark interaction protocols. Naledi eventually returned to free diving, though with enhanced safety measures and a profound respect for the power of the marine predators that shared her underwater world. Her story became part of the local folklore, illustrating both the dangers and the resilience required for those who chose to make their living from the sea's unpredictable bounty. The vast reef system off northeastern Australia is one of the world's most biodiverse marine ecosystems, stretching over 2,000 kilometers along the coastline. A well-known dive site located about 40 kilometers from a major coastal city has earned a reputation among underwater photographers for its exceptional visibility and dense populations of tropical fish. The area's position at the convergence of several ocean currents created unique conditions that supported both coral growth and the larger predatory species that fed on the abundant marine life. However, rising water temperatures and increased human activity had begun to stress the ecosystem, leading to unpredictable changes in animal behavior patterns. Elena Corson had established her reputation as a marine photographer through nearly a decade of documenting coral reef ecosystems across the Indo-Pacific region. Her work had been featured in numerous scientific publications and conservation magazines, earning recognition for both its artistic merit and educational value. At 36, she possessed the technical diving skills and patience required to capture images of rare species that typically avoided human presence. Her specialty involved photographing fish behavior during feeding and spawning activities, work that required spending extended periods underwater in close proximity to marine life. In 2016, Elena had been commissioned by a marine conservation organization to document the health of coral systems around Coral Point, with particular emphasis on species that served as indicators of ecosystem stability. The assignment required multiple deep dives over several days, during which she would photograph specific fish species and coral formations that had been selected for long-term monitoring purposes. Her equipment included underwater cameras capable of capturing high-resolution images in low-light conditions, along with specialized lighting systems designed to minimize disturbance to marine life. The morning of her final dive began with weather conditions that were ideal for underwater photography. Surface winds were minimal, creating calm conditions that would allow for stable boat positioning and safe diving operations. Water temperature registered 24 degrees Celsius, warm enough to permit extended underwater periods without excessive thermal protection. Visibility exceeded 30 meters, providing the clear water conditions essential for capturing the detailed images required by her conservation clients. Elena's dive plan called for a solo descent to approximately 25 meters, where she intended to photograph a rare species of angelfish that had been observed in the area during previous surveys. Solo diving represented a calculated risk that many underwater photographers accepted to avoid disturbing wildlife with the presence of multiple divers. Her safety protocols included surface communication equipment and emergency ascent procedures, though the remote location meant that rescue resources were limited. The target species, known for its elusive nature and specific habitat requirements, had been spotted near a coral formation that provided both shelter and feeding opportunities. Elena's approach required careful positioning to capture the fish in its natural environment without causing it to flee to deeper water, where photography would become impossible. Her technique involved remaining motionless for extended periods while waiting for the ideal moment to activate her camera system. The tiger shark that killed Elena had likely been attracted to the area by the scent of fish blood and organic matter stirred up by her photographic activities. Tiger sharks are known as opportunistic predators with less specialized feeding habits than great whites, making them more likely to investigate unusual underwater disturbances. The species typically hunt during daylight hours in shallow reef environments, characteristics that placed Elena directly in the path of a hunting predator. Her dive buddy, photographer James Mitchell, had remained on the surface to monitor safety protocols and maintain communication with their support vessel. His position allowed him to observe Elena's general location through the clear water, though the specific details of her photographic work were obscured by depth and the coral formations where she was operating. The attack occurred suddenly, with the tiger shark approaching from Elena's blind spot while she was focused on capturing images of the angelfish. The shark's initial strike targeted Elena's torso and thigh, its powerful jaws inflicting massive trauma that would have caused rapid blood loss and shock. Tiger sharks possess serrated teeth designed for cutting through tough materials, making their attacks particularly devastating to human victims. The predator's behavior suggested a feeding response rather than defensive or territorial aggression, with multiple strikes indicating that it had identified Elena as potential prey. James's attempts to intervene were hampered by the depth at which the attack occurred and the tiger shark's aggressive behavior toward any approaching objects. His emergency ascent procedures and surface communication protocols were executed correctly, though the remote location meant that professional rescue resources could not arrive in time to affect the outcome. The attack's duration and intensity made survival unlikely, even under ideal circumstances. Recovery operations required several hours due to the challenging underwater terrain and the need to ensure the safety of rescue divers. Elena's body was eventually located at a depth of 35 meters, having been carried away from the original attack site by the current and the shark's movements. Her camera equipment was found scattered across a wide area of the sea floor, with some images still recoverable from the memory cards. The incident prompted discussions within the underwater photography community about the risks associated with solo diving in areas known to harbor large predatory species. Marine biologists noted that tiger shark behavior can be unpredictable, particularly in reef environments where human activity may alter normal feeding patterns. Elena's death represented a tragic loss to the marine conservation community, as her work had contributed significantly to public understanding of reef ecosystem health. Her family established a scholarship fund supporting young marine photographers, ensuring that her commitment to ocean conservation would continue through future generations of underwater documentarians. The tragedy became a reminder that even experienced professionals face inherent risks when working in marine environments shared with apex predators. Elena's legacy lived on through her extensive photographic archives and the conservation initiatives that her work had helped to establish and support throughout her career. The waters off Cape Town, South Africa, had long been recognized as one of the world's most concentrated great white shark habitats, with the convergence of warm Indian Ocean and cold Atlantic currents creating ideal conditions for both the sharks and their primary prey species. A large bay on the eastern side of the Cape Peninsula served as a crucial hunting ground where great white sharks gathered to feed on the dense Cape fur seal colonies inhabiting a nearby island. The area's reputation among marine researchers and adventure tourists grew steadily, while local communities maintained a deep respect for the apex predators that patrolled these rich waters. In 2020, the region had experienced unusual environmental conditions that marine biologists attributed to shifting ocean temperatures and altered current patterns. These changes had disrupted traditional feeding behaviors among various species, leading to increased predator activity in areas typically considered safe for recreational diving. Lena Vasquez and Sasha Petrov had traveled from their home countries to experience South Africa's renowned great white shark populations through cage diving operations based in Gansbaai. Both women possessed advanced diving certifications and had participated in similar expeditions in Australia and Mexico, though neither had encountered great whites in their natural hunting environment. Their friendship had been forged through shared adventures in challenging marine environments, with both women demonstrating the confidence and technical skills required for advanced diving activities. The dive expedition had been organized by a local operator with extensive experience in great white shark tourism, though the specific site selected for their adventure diving was located several kilometers from the traditional cage diving areas. This rocky reef system, known locally for its diverse marine life and excellent visibility, attracted advanced divers seeking encounters with sharks in a more natural setting than the controlled cage diving environment could provide. Water conditions on the day of the attack were exceptional, with visibility exceeding 20 meters and water temperature reaching 18 degrees Celsius. The reef structure extended from depths of 5 meters to over 40 meters, creating complex underwater topography that supported diverse marine communities. Schools of yellowtail and other baitfish had been observed in the area during the previous week, potentially attracting the attention of larger predatory species. Both women had completed extensive briefings on great white shark behavior and safety protocols, including techniques for minimizing the risk of predator encounters and appropriate responses if sharks were observed during their dive. Their equipment included underwater cameras for documenting marine life, though they had been instructed to avoid rapid movements or activities that might attract unwanted attention from large predators. The great white shark that attacked Sasha appeared to have been patrolling the deeper waters adjacent to the reef system when it detected the unusual activity patterns created by the diving pair. Great whites are known to investigate novel stimuli in their territory, particularly when such disturbances occur in areas associated with feeding opportunities. The shark's approach from below followed the species' typical hunting pattern, using the darker depths to conceal its presence until the final strike. Sasha had been photographing a school of fish near the reef's edge when the attack occurred. Her attention focused on capturing images rather than monitoring for potential threats. The great white's initial strike targeted her thigh with devastating force, its massive jaws designed to inflict maximum trauma to disable large prey. The impact knocked her off balance while the shark's powerful body created turbulence that made it difficult for her to orient herself or respond effectively. Lena's response to her friend's predicament demonstrated remarkable courage and presence of mind under extreme circumstances. Her decision to physically engage with a great white shark contradicted conventional wisdom about shark encounter protocols, though the desperate nature of the situation left few alternatives. Her strikes against the shark's snout targeted one of the few areas where physical contact might influence the predator's behavior, though such tactics carried enormous personal risk. The underwater environment complicated rescue efforts by eliminating the possibility of verbal communication or coordination with surface support. Lena's actions were guided purely by instinct and her determination to save her friend, though her lack of specialized tools or weapons meant that her physical strength was the only resource available for combating a predator that outweighed her by several hundred kilograms. Sasha's defensive movements included vigorous kicking and attempts to push the shark away, using her diving equipment, tactics that may have contributed to the predator's eventual decision to abandon the attack. Great white sharks typically prefer prey that offers minimal resistance, and the combined efforts of both women likely convinced the shark that they represented more trouble than they were worth as potential food sources. The shark's release of Sasha and subsequent retreat into deeper water provided the opportunity for both women to begin their emergency ascent to the surface. Lena's assistance during this critical phase ensured that Sasha maintained proper breathing control despite her injuries and the shock of the encounter. Their training in emergency ascent procedures proved invaluable in avoiding decompression-related complications that could have worsened an already dangerous situation. Surface support personnel responded immediately upon seeing the blood in the water and the distressed condition of both divers. Emergency medical supplies were deployed while radio contact was established with coastal rescue services, though the remote location meant that professional medical care would require considerable time to reach them. Sasha's injuries were severe but not immediately life-threatening, provided that proper wound care could be administered promptly. The boat's return to harbor became a race against time as Sasha's condition required surgical intervention to repair the extensive tissue damage and address potential complications from blood loss. Her survival was attributed to the rapid response of her dive partner and the professional emergency medical care that she received upon reaching shore facilities. Both women required psychological counseling to process the traumatic encounter, though their friendship was strengthened by the experience of surviving such an extreme situation together. Lena's heroic actions became legendary within the diving community, illustrating how courage and quick thinking could overcome seemingly impossible odds in life-threatening emergencies. The incident contributed to ongoing research into great white shark behavior and human-shark interaction protocols, providing valuable data about how these apex predators respond to multiple targets and physical resistance. The attack served as a reminder that even experienced divers face inherent risks when entering the domain of ocean predators that have ruled marine ecosystems for millions of years.